The Smoky Mountains are known for their beauty, the rolling fog, the vibrant leaves, and endless hiking trails. But they have a reputation for something else: people disappearing without a trace. In 1976, a 16-year-old girl named Trenny Gibson vanished on a high school field trip. Despite one of the largest search efforts in national park history, no one has ever found her. This is Manic Manor Podcast, and I am your host, Mitchie. Tonight, we revisit the timeline, the search, and the heartbreaking mystery of Trenny Gibson. Trenny Gibson was born August 17, 1960, and lived in Knoxville, Tennessee with her family. She was only 16 years old when she had disappeared. Now her teachers, classmates, and family all described her the same way: a responsible, intelligent, and grounded individual who was passionate about horticulture and had dreams of studying at the University of Tennessee. This meant that she needed to have good grades, and her father made a deal with her. If she kept those grades up, she could get a car. And she was also working part-time, and around that time had saved $2,000. By all accounts, she was on track to earn everything she could ever dream of. And everybody also agreed on one thing: she wasn't the kind of girl to wander off or act impulsively, which makes her story all the more unsettling. We go to the day of her field trip, October 8th, 1976. The weather was chilly and overcast with a light drizzle. Trenny did not think that the field trip was going to happen, so she didn't properly dress for it. She ended up finding out that upon her mother dropping her off, there was a bus waiting out in front of her school. 38 students in total. Trenny joined her classmates for a surprise field trip to Clingman's Dome in the Great Smoky Mountains that was led and organized by her horticulture teacher, Mr. Wayne Dunlap. And as I said before, the weather was chilly, overcast. It wasn't the ideal type of hiking situation, but the students were told that they were still going to hike the area of Andrews Bald, observe the plant life, and return to the bus by 3:30 p.m. The rules were clear. You were to stay on the main trail and not to deviate onto any side paths. Trenny ended up being partnered with a boy named Robert Simpson, or she was walking with him. A classmate who later said that she looked cold because, she was not properly prepared for that day for hiking. He ended up giving her his jacket. And when they reached Andrews Bald, Trenny decided that she was going to head back a little earlier than Robert because Robert wanted to explore more. Other students on the trail reported seeing Trenny walking ahead of them, and she was moving rather quickly and not saying very much. At one point they saw her stop, bend over, perhaps she was examining a plant, tying her shoe, and then they said they saw her slightly veer off the trail to the right. Now, the area that she was veering off to had no side trails in that particular area, and when they looked up again, Trenny was gone. They had just assumed she went back to the bus. Now, when the group reached that bus by the 3:30 p.m. marker, they noticed Trenny was not there. She had not returned. Now, at first, Mr. Dunlap and a student went off to search the trail, but minutes kept ticking by, and those minutes turned to hours, and by that time, the park rangers were called. It was 6:30 p.m., and the search begun in earnest. I don't think any of those students were prepared to know that they were going to be leaving without another student in tow with them. Now, as these park rangers were searching, the weather began to worsen, the fog rolled in, rain fell, and darkness made it all but impossible to see. Trenny's parents were notified around 8 p.m. that evening, and they brought in scent dogs to smell her clothing and try to get a track on her. By midnight, rangers and volunteers had searched entirely, like the entire area around the Klingman's Dome, into the early morning hours. Scent dogs traced her to a section of the Appalachian Trail about 1.6 miles away. There, the searchers found some broken ferns, some cigarette butts, and an empty beer can that they couldn't necessarily attach to Trenny's disappearance, so it was chalked up to pretty much nothing. Her scent just kind of went cold. And after that, there was really nothing. Now, over 750 people had joined the search. Helicopters were scanning from above. Ground was combed by the rangers, guardmen, locals who just wanted to team in and try to help find this local girl. But they never found Trenny, and she never turned up. Now, this search continued for about 3 weeks until October 22nd, 1976, followed by a limited search that went on from that point until November 2nd, 1976. The area continuously being combed, but the search would eventually be called off because they could find no physical evidence, and they had no indicators that Trenny was still in the park. It didn't mean that the people completely gave up hope, of course. They stayed on high alert for her, but they just couldn't find anything in that area. It got to the point where the FBI became involved and believed this case could possibly be an abduction case. Anyone who had been camping or in the park at the time that was known was looked at and interviewed, and as the search was underway, Trenny's father dropped a bombshell. He believed a fellow student had been behind her disappearance. Now, about a year before, there was another boy from her high school named Kelvin Bowman who was apparently obsessed with Trenny and had been stalking her. October 11th, 1975, Kelvin had been on the front lawn of the Gibson household when Trenny's mother, hearing the noise, went out armed to investigate and ended up shooting him in the foot. Kelvin ended up being arrested and spent time in an institution for this incident. Apparently he had made threats to harm and even kill Trenny when he had gotten out. The most disturbing part of the entire incident was kind of not really surprising for people who live in the Knox County area and the Blount County area. Knox County schools put Kelvin right back into the same school as Trenny when he was released from his arrest and institutionalization. There were people who claimed that they saw him following the bus the day of the field trip. However, attendance records and the principal refute the claim, saying that he had been at school that day. And the teacher, Mr. Dunlap, was also adamant that there was no one following the bus. So, where could Trenny be? Was it an accident? Did she simply misstep off the trail and succumb to the elements? Or was she abducted by someone with malicious intent? Now, there are two main theories that arose. The first is that of abduction. This comes from the cigarette butts in the beer can found. However, they couldn't really tie it to the case, hardcore. People believe that likely she would have gotten taken from Andrew's Bald and then hidden someplace before being taken away permanently by another vehicle. The second one is that she simply, by mistake, followed the Appalachian Trail instead of the Andrews Bald Trail, and she kept going until she was completely lost. It's been almost 49 years, and Trenny's case remains unsolved to this day. She's not the first person to disappear in this region, and unfortunately and most likely she will not be the last person. Nonetheless, it is a baffling disappearance. Now, the last time Trenny was seen, she was carrying a 1970-style Stanley comb. So she would approximately be 64 to 65 years of age by now. At the time of her disappearance, she was 5'3" and weighed around 115 pounds. She has green eyes, brown hair, and is Caucasian. Now, the clothes she was last seen to be wearing was a blue blouse, blue and white striped shirt, blue jeans, blue Adidas shoes, and a diamond and sapphire ring. It's highly unlikely that we would find Trenny alive at this point, but one can always hope and hold out that she may be out there, so it's important for us to keep her story alive. Thank you for joining me here at the Manic Manor Podcast. If you have anything you would like to add on to this story or any comments where I got something wrong, please feel free to reach out to me. You can reach out on Facebook and Instagram at Manic Manor Podcast. You can also email me at manicmanorpodcast@gmail.com, and you can also reach out in the YouTube comments as well. So until next time, keep your doors locked, watch your step, and don't stray too far from the trail. Good night.